Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Everyone, welcome to the show. So 34-year-old Kentucky resident Stephen Randolph didn't even watch Donald Trump's speech on January 6th. He headed straight to the Capitol early. He went with a bunch of people, and he was among the first group of rioters to breach the Capitol grounds at Peace Circle, which is always so funny to me, so ironically funny that it's named that. After another member of the mob yelled through a bullhorn, they were encouraging the men in the crowd to move to the front. Randolph charged. He charged forward with a bunch of other people, and they ended up becoming his co-defendants, all these other people. So I'll be covering their trials or their sentencings in the days to come. But Randolph admitted to investigators that there were only about 3 officers on the other side of the barricade. And due to the size of the crowd, he said, quote, "They had no chance." So he knew that. But Randolph grabbed a metal barricade, grabbed it directly in front of Officer Caroline Edwards, who you may have seen. She's spoken in front of the January 6th Select Committee. She's been at other events. So he started violently thrashing back and forth with this barricade. And then, along with his other inevitable co-defendants, Randolph lifted the barricade off the ground, and they just charged forward with it. They pushed it toward the officers. The barricade slammed into Officer Edwards' face, so she was thrown backwards, and then the back of her head hit the metal handrail first on the stairs behind her, and then she fell, and then the back of her head slammed into the concrete steps. So Officer Edwards testified at trial that her memory was basically gone after that. She said that her last memory was a, quote, "loud clang of my jaw hitting the metal handrail." So at that point, she lost consciousness. So she had no memory of her head hitting the concrete. When she came to, she said there was another officer who was basically yelling that they had to go. She said she was confused and dazed, and she couldn't really focus. But the other officer warned her, "We got to go." And she said, quote, "adrenaline survival kicked in." So inevitably, Officer Edwards had to be taken to the hospital. She became incoherent later in the day. She passed out a second time. She told the jury that the pain was, quote, "absolutely excruciating. I had to clamp my mouth shut to try to keep from either screaming, throwing up, or crying. It was just horrible. It felt like somebody was taking my head and trying to tear it apart. I can't describe to you the pain that was emanating from the back of my head." So that horrific pain lasted for weeks. And it wasn't until April of 2021 that she started to regain her balance and she was able to drive again. So for 4 months. Until then, she could only stand up, she said, for about 30 minutes at a time. If she tried to stand up longer than that, she would get vertigo and she would throw up. And even after she was allowed to go back to work, which was in May of 2021, they put her on desk duty for another 1.5 years. And in November of 2021, she lost consciousness again, so they had to take her to the hospital again. And Officer Edwards said that she still gets migraines because of this attack. She said they last anywhere between 4 hours to 2 days at a time. And she said in a bad month, she'll get them about once a week. In a good month, she gets them once a month. So Randolph knew that Officer Edwards was seriously injured that day because he later told an undercover agent that he saw, quote, "a lady cop get slammed." And then Randolph explained how her head hit the handrail, and he said, quote, "she had to get a concussion because she just lay there in the fetal position." So he knew. But during the Capitol attack, he didn't care. He didn't give a damn. While Officer Edwards was still on the ground unconscious, he jumped over the barricade and then grabbed another officer named Cruz. So this a third officer tried to intervene. Randolph then grabbed that third officer's arm and pulled it down over Cruz's head. So Cruz was effectively in a headlock and between the two of them. And then other members of the mob got involved. They jumped into this melee. A fourth officer then stepped in. He had to punch one of the other people to try to get Officer Cruz free. So after all of these men broke free from each other, Randolph tried to make a break for it. He tried to run up the steps toward the Capitol. The third officer that jumped in grabbed him again, tried to stop him. But by that time, the barricades were down. The entire mob overwhelmed the police and they headed towards the building. So a while later, Randolph was seen on the Upper West Terrace. From there, he could see what was going on, the officers being attacked by the mob in the Lower West Terrace tunnel. And we know this because he described it and how, they were coordinating the heave-ho pushes. He described all this to the undercover agent, and he said, quote, "It was fucking fun." Remember that as I read his sentencing. He also mentioned being on a German podcast. He said, "Oh, I might become famous because of it." Congratulations, you are famous, just not for the reasons you'd hoped. And then Randolph told the podcast audience he was upset when he headed home on January 6th because he knew what happened was wrong and that the media was going to portray it as, quote, monsters attacking the Capitol. And that's not really how it was. Wasn't it, though? He also claimed that it was a member of Antifa who was yelling into the bullhorn that incited the mob to attack the barricade. Oddly, that guy later became one of Randolph's co-defendants, and he's a tried and true MAGA man as well. So wrong again. So the FBI paid Randolph a little visit. They visited him in April of 2021. And after they read him his Miranda rights, said, you have the right to remain silent, Randolph said, quote, "I don't feel like I've done anything criminal, so I'll talk to you." So he proceeded to lie. Told the agents, as usual, that he is an aggrieved hero. Randolph claimed that he tried to help Officer Edwards, but he was punched by another officer. He actually said he picked her up and he told her, "Move out of the way because the crowd might hurt you." And then Randolph claimed that the other officers pulled him over the barricade and started punching him. Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's on video, but make it make sense at least, right? I mean, how could he have picked up Officer Edwards if he was still on the other side of the barricades when the other officers pulled him over the barricades? They're not even good liars. And when the FBI showed Randolph the video evidence of his crimes, he still tried to minimize his actions. And then he doubled down on his fairy tale and he said that the, quote, "cops on the left beat the shit out of me." Maybe you deserved it if they did. And then Randolph said that he had his hands up, but the officers were uppercutting him in the face. So investigators say that after the interview ended, Randolph got upset and he told the agents, quote, "Can't y'all just, we accept defeat already. We lost. Joe Biden is president. Yay. There's more important shit to be doing than this. I ain't hurting nobody. I'm gonna plead not guilty. I didn't do anything wrong. I pushed a wall. Do you think I did anything wrong?" Yeah, it's kind of why you're being arrested. So Randolph was arrested on April 20th of 2021, and in his fourth superseding indictment, he was charged with civil disorder, 3 counts of assaulting officers, 2 that included a dangerous weapon enhancement, entering restricted grounds with a dangerous weapon, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, 1 of which included a dangerous weapon enhancement, 2 counts of physical violence, 1 of those also included the dangerous weapon enhancement, and obstructing an official proceeding. So Randolph was temporarily held in jail before his arraignment, And, they record all of your calls. So there were 2 separate recorded jailhouse calls that he made, or that someone else made to him. And he admitted to, quote, shaking the barricades. In the second call, Randolph minimized his violence. He said, quote, "I got caught up in the heat of the moment. Everyone cheering and chanting and screaming. It washed over me, and I grabbed the fence and started shaking with everybody. That lady just fell and hit her head. It's just a disaster. I feel so bad." Yeah, she just, woo, boop, she just fell over. Must have been drunk or something. Don't know how. She just lost her balance. I mean, these people. Anyway, in a third call, Randolph told someone, quote, "I don't deserve a lot of time. I didn't do nothing too bad." So, okay. So Randolph refused a plea deal. Love when they do that. He opted for a bench trial. And in February of 2024, the judge convicted him on 4 counts. So they got him on civil disorder, 2 counts of assaulting officers, one of which included the dangerous weapon enhancement, one without the dangerous weapon enhancement, and then physical violence on Capitol grounds. So based on just the assault with the dangerous weapon, he was looking at up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. And this time, the government requested a lengthy sentence. So they asked for 135 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. As for Randolph's criminal history, he has only one other arrest and conviction. It was for 2011 public intoxication and resisting arrest. U.S. District Judge Gia Cobb presided over Randolph's case, and at the sentencing hearing, she commented on the misinformation that's being propagated to downplay the violence on January 6th. And Judge Cobb also said that she was concerned about what might happen after this year's election because, quote, "temperature remains too high." And, quote, "not in my lifetime have I seen a situation where the peaceful transfer of power was threatened like it was on January 6th. And with that, Randolph was sentenced to 8 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So this is the first good sentence that Judge Cobb has ever handed down. I know it falls short of the 11 plus years that were requested, but I think it's good. He received one of the longest sentences of all of the January 6 defendants. He's probably, I would say, in the top 10, if not top 15. So guess who won't be out of prison while Donald Trump is still alive? And who won't be voting this year? Oh, well. Yeah, so was it still fucking fun, Randolph? Was it? A lot of fun. Have fun with that. All right. Anyway, I will let you know if I hear any more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.